83 finalists, but one popcorn girl's shocking choice changed everything at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3. A chill crept through the air, flickering shadows danced under the flickering fluorescence of the empty arena, and the faint sound of popcorn kernels popping echoed in the distance. It was the kind of hour that felt charged with secrecy, as if the world held its breath, anxious to see what would happen next. Bursting with excitement and trepidation, the finalists had gathered for the most intense showdown of their lives, a competition like none other, where only one could claim the crown. Yet amidst the sea of cheer and laughter from the audience, a single girl stood apart, holding a secret that could change everything. Her name was Ellie. Just 16, covered in a shimmer of grease and glitter from her popcorn cart, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had a choice to make. A choice hidden from everyone else, wrapped in mystery. As she stared into the crowd's eager faces, Ellie noticed the subtle tension building behind the excitement. The other contestants looked on, pale and weary-eyed, their own dreams trembling in the balance. They had trained for this, they were ready. But Ellie was different. She sensed a shift, a thrumming in the air that signaled this wasn't just a contest. It was something darker, something deeper. Behind her infectious smile, she carried an unsettling knowledge. A warning whispered from an old crone at the fair. Tonight, choices made at 3 will echo into eternity. The woman's gravelly voice rang through her mind. Each popping kernel sounded like a ticking clock, drumming on her nerves, and Ellie couldn't shake it. What did it mean? As she took a deep breath, the thrill of being on stage battled with the stabbing fear in her chest. The audience waited for her call to action, and Ellie's heart raced. Sweat trickled down her back. Would she really go through with it? Just as she began to step forward, poised and gathered, she noticed something, a shadow, a figure slipping into the back of the crowd veiled in darkness. It sent a jolt through her. Who was that? What were they doing there? The tension peaked, the world seemed to pause, every face turned toward her. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The scream pierced through the silence, shrill and horrifying, cutting the electric tension like a knife. The audience gasped, a collective intake of breath as Ellie froze, her mouth agape. Had she been the cause? She turned, eyes wide, heart pounding, half expecting to see the crone's phantom among them. But it was only the shadowy figure, moving with an intense purpose, advancing toward her. And as the crowd erupted into chaos, Ellie's eyes locked on that stranger. A decision loomed on the horizon. What could she possibly do next? Would her shocking choice be the spark that ignited everything? Only time would tell. The air crackled as the scream faded, replaced by a flurry of voices rising in panic. The bright lights of the arena felt harsh, illuminating the chaotic scene unfolding before Ellie. Her heart pounded in her chest, a wild drum pushing her toward an unthinkable possibility. What was that figure doing? The crowd surged, a mass of bodies swaying and pulling in various directions. Ellie felt a magnetic pull toward the shadow as it moved closer. There was something almost familiar about it. She squinted, trying to make out the features obscured in the dim light, but the figure zigzagged through the throngs of excited fans and anxious contestants with eerie grace. Suddenly it stopped, the tension palpable. Time seemed to slow, and all eyes, including hers, followed its movements. "Ellie, move!" a voice screamed from the back. It was Mia, her closest friend and fellow competitor. Mia looked terrified, face pale beneath the harsh lights. But Ellie couldn't tear her gaze away from the figure now standing still, shrouded in a cloak of mystery. "Why are you here?" Ellie whispered, almost to herself, but the figure heard. It stepped forward into the light, revealing a face she recognized. It was Jason, her brother. Ellie's breath hitched. Jason hadn't been at the fair in years. He had vanished without a trace after a family argument that left scars deeper than any she could remember. "What are you doing here?" she barely managed to say, her voice cracking under the weight of confusion and disbelief. I came to warn you. He shouted, his voice strained over the uproar. You need to make the right choice, Ellie. It's not what you think. What does that even mean? Panic flushed through her, bringing a rush of heat as she turned to her audience. They were still reeling, confusing whispers blending with the heightened emotion. She felt the weight of every eye on her, both supportive and accusatory. Choices, secrets, everything spiraled within her mind. The tension in the air felt electric, pushing Ellie toward action. It felt like all those years of doubt and resentment coalesced into this moment. Could she trust him? Could she trust anyone? Ignoring the surge of chaos behind her, she took a step closer to her brother. But the moment was broken by the laugh of a sinister voice from the darkened corners of the arena. Isn't this delightful? It crooned, laced with mockery. Family reunions at a time like this. What a show! Ellie turned sharply, the words igniting a spark of fear deeper than before. The shadows shifted in response, creating a tension of their own. Was there more to this night than a simple competition? I have to go, Ellie shouted to Jason, heart racing. She felt the pull between wanting answers and the urge to flee. If she didn't act now, every moment could alter not just her fate but the fate of those she cared about. Mia caught her eye, pleading with her, desperation etched into every feature. Ellie, don't listen to him. But Jason stepped forward, urgency etched deeply in his brow. The world spun as Ellie faced the tug-of-war pulling at her heart. Make a choice, Ellie. Jason's voice broke through the noise, pushing her toward the precipice of her decision. And at that moment the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly, a prelude to something monumental. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The time to act was now. Would her decision steer her into chaos or salvation? The clock ticked down. Would she dare to embrace the shocking choice that awaited her? The tension crackled as she realized the moment had come. Waiting was no longer an option. The air was thick with tension as Ellie stood, teetering on the edge of a life-altering decision. The moment stretched like taffy, every heartbeat echoing in the silence that followed Jason's plea. The crowd swirled around her, anxiety palpable, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. She couldn't afford to freeze. The stakes were too high. Ellie, Mia shouted again, voice cracking through the muddle of noise. Get out of here. This is worth it. But Jason stepped into the dim light, shadows clinging to him as if to keep him anchored in the darkness that had consumed him for so long. You need to trust me. His eyes locked onto hers, desperate yet filled with an earnestness she hadn't seen in years. The flicker of hope mixed with fear sparked inside her. Could she really trust him after everything that had happened? With each passing moment, the weight of the decision grew heavier. Then, the laughter echoed again, chilling her to the bone. Oh, don't be so hasty, dear Ellie, the voice taunted, dripping with malevolence. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Ellie's skin prickled at the sound, a sinister reminder of the forces lurking just beyond the flickering lights of the arena. Fear twisted in her stomach, but a flicker of anger burned through the uncertainty. She needed to act. Ellie, focus. Jason's voice broke through her thoughts like lightning. There's a reason I'm here. You have to let go of your past and see clearly. If you don't before he could finish, another sound broke the air, an explosive crack like thunder, sent the crowd spiraling into a frenzy. Someone screamed and Ellie spun toward the source, her breath hitching in her throat. A section of the stands had collapsed, the noise and chaos sending a shockwave through the audience. Time resumed with a jolt as people scrambled away from the wreckage, terror etched into their faces. Ellie's heart raced even faster. What had just happened? She turned back to Jason, but he was already on the move, driven by an urgency she couldn't fully comprehend. Stay close to me, he shouted, gripping her wrist tightly. She felt the heat of panic radiating from him as they pushed their way through the sea of terrified bodies. Was this rescue or imprisonment? Mia followed, her eyes wide with panic as they weaved past the chaos. This is madness, Ellie. We need to get out now. But here they were, deep in it, with danger looming all around. No, we can't leave. Not until I know what's going on. She barely recognized her own voice, resolute against the tide of terror. The arena lights flickered ominously, plunging them into brief darkness before illuminating the chaos again. The sinister voice laughed again, echoing through the pandemonium like a malevolent specter. You think you have a choice, Ellie? You're standing at the crossroads and I have the map. Chaos erupted around them, but Ellie felt the adrenaline rush coursing through her veins, sharpening her clarity. Every choice held potential, every direction was a risk. Could trusting Jason really lead her to safety, or would it plunge her into even greater danger? As they reached the edge of the crowd, Ellie hesitated. She could almost see the crossroads, a path ahead leading to the darkness she feared and the light of her childhood she longed for. Ellie, make it quick, Jason urged, his voice urgent. With every pulse of her heart, Ellie felt a decision crystallizing inside her. Would she step forward to face the unknown, or retreat to where the shadows held no answers? Then, in a single breath, she took one step forward. And as she did, the ground beneath her trembled violently again, sending shockwaves through the remaining stands. Let the chaos unfold, the moment had finally arrived. But what awaited her at the end of this path? Hope or disaster? The ground shook violently beneath Ellie's feet. Her breath hitched as the world around her twisted into a frenzy of panic. People screamed, their faces twisted in terror, while debris rained down like confetti from a macabre celebration. Jason's grip on her wrist tightened, his panic now palpable, urging her to move forward even as uncertainty roiled in her gut. Come on, he yelled, his eyes wide with urgency. We have to get to the exit before what? Ellie's heart raced as the chaos blurred into a whirl of colors and sounds. She couldn't think straight. All she felt was the weight of the choice she just made. There was no turning back now. Ahead she saw a flicker of light, barely cutting through the chaos. That way, Ellie shouted, pointing toward the faint exit sign glowing in the distance. Pushing through the mass of bodies, they sprinted together, Ellie's heart pounding as adrenaline surged through her veins. She could hear the laughter again, eerily echoing in her mind, slithering through the edges of her consciousness. You think you can escape so easily? Jason's face twisted with dread, and he pulled her closer. Do you hear that? We need to hurry. The crowd surged like a tide, knocking them off balance for a moment. Ellie steadied herself, stealing a glance back. The stands were collapsing, chunks of concrete plummeting to the ground. Panic radiated from the audience like a spreading fire, consuming everything in its path. Stay with me, she urged Jason, pulling him back from the edge of being lost in the panic. They pushed onward, every footfall carrying the weight of their choice, but the voices around them seemed to swallow each step, amplifying her fear. As they neared the exit, the laughter twisted into something darker. It mocked her courage, the flame of hope she dared to stoke within. You will never be free, Ellie. The shadows will follow you always. Suddenly, a massive shadow ripped across the doorway. A figure loomed in the flickering light, tall, silhouetted against the chaos. Ellie's blood ran cold. Was this the embodiment of everything she feared? Her breath caught in her throat, heart racing as she clutched Jason's arm. What do we do? His eyes darted around, searching for another way out. Fight, she breathed, the word slipping from her lips. We can't show fear. Their gazes locked, and for a fleeting moment, Ellie found solace in the connection. Jason nodded, the resolve hardening in his eyes as they prepared to face whatever horrors lay ahead. With a surge of determination, they rushed toward the figure, but in the moment they leaped forward, a deafening crack echoed through the arena. The ground trembled beneath them, and all at once, the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. Ellie stumbled, her fingers gripping Jason's as she tried to keep them anchored in the abyss. The laughter rang anew, echoing in the blackness, sounding closer than ever. Did you really think you could escape? Panic surged, and with it, a question spun in her mind. Was this all just a game? Was she merely a pawn on someone's twisted chessboard, the consequences of which she may never fully understand? Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing a new scene. The arena had transformed into a nightmarish hall, adorned with grotesque images that suggested the worst kind of betrayal. But as Ellie looked around, one fact slammed into her. Mia was missing. Jason! She screamed, panic clawing at her throat. Where's Mia? He spun, horror etched on his face. I don't know. Everything shifted again, confusion hanging thick in the air. Had they lost her in the chaos? Were they too late? With dread curling in the pit of her stomach, Ellie realized they weren't just running from the chaos. They were now part of something so much larger, something with dire stakes. What was that voice? she asked, trembling. And who was that figure? Jason's expression darkened, shadows flickering across his features. You need to remember. We're not done with the past yet. As the heavy doors at the end of the hall began to creak open, Ellie felt a wave of uncertainty crash over her. What awaited them on the other side? Answers or even more questions? A shiver ran down her spine. She could either plunge forward into the unknown, or wait for the inevitable. But what if there was no escaping the past? And what if she had to confront it before she could move on? With one last glance back, she steeled herself, knowing the moment would define everything. Just then a low, chilling voice whispered in her ear, "Welcome to the game, Ellie. It's your turn to play." And with that, the door began to open wide, revealing a world painted with dark promises. What would she face inside? As the door creaked open, Ellie felt a rush of cold air enveloping her, heavy with the scent of fear and despair. The hall beyond was dim, each shadow flickering with an unsettling life of its own. She stumbled forward, heart hammering in her chest, her instincts screaming for her to turn back. "What is this place?" Jason whispered, his voice barely a breath, filled with astonishment and dread. Words escaped Ellie as she scanned their surroundings. The walls were lined with massive screens showcasing distorted faces of those they had lost, each contorted in terror. It felt like being trapped in a nightmare, one where the only escape was into more pain. Suddenly, laughter erupted again, shattering the silence. It echoed off the walls, seeming to come from every corner, each note sharp and taunting. "Do you really think you can solve the puzzle?" The voice, darker now, wrapped around her like a serpent, constricting her thoughts. "Ellie, we have to move," Jason urged, grabbing her arm. His grip was firm, grounding her despite the chaos painting her vision. They stepped cautiously, their footsteps crunching on shattered glass that littered the floor. Each sound reverberated in her mind, amplifying the dread. As they moved deeper inside, the screens flickered to life with scenes from their past, moments of joy intertwined with guilt and regret. Ellie couldn't look away. She could barely breathe. "Why are they showing this?" she gasped, gripping Jason tighter. The images wrenched at her heart, forcing her to confront pieces of herself she had buried long ago. Maybe it's a test," he stammered. His brow glistened with sweat, eyes scanning for danger. "To see how far we'll go to save each other." A heavy thud echoed behind them. They spun around, eyes wide with fear. Was something chasing them? Was Mia lost in this maze, or worse? The realization cut deeper, unraveling the fragile thread of hope Ellie had tried to cling to. "Can you see an exit?" Ellie urged, voice raw with desperation. Jason shook his head, frustration peeking through. "We need to keep moving. Stay focused." But focus was slipping away. The laughter grew louder, intertwined with whispers that scraped against her sanity. "This is where it starts, Ellie, where the game begins." Shadows darted past them, shapes elongated and grotesque, each movement igniting fresh terror within her. Suddenly, one of the screens blared to life, displaying Jason's face twisted in anguish. He jerked back, a look of horror etched across him. "No, that's not me." "Jason, don't look," Ellie shouted, but it was too late. He froze, entranced by the relentless barrage of images showing the worst fears realized, shadows licking at his sanity. "Make it stop," he begged, but the voice silenced him. The laughter transformed into a bone-chilling echo, a gloating reminder that they were puppets in a cruel game, manipulated by forces unknown. "I can't," he choked out, struggling against the horror laid bare on the screen. "Look at me," Ellie screamed, forcing her way into his view. "We will get through this. Do you hear me?" His eyes flickered back to her, the shadows within them still wrestling for control. "What if we can't? What if this is it? Then we fight," Ellie declared, summoning every ounce of strength. "We don't let them win." As if summoned by her defiance, the laughter ceased. A cold silence fell over the hall like a blanket, suffocating in its intensity. But before they could even take a breath, the ground shook violently again. The screens exploded into a flurry of images, Mia's face now covered in terror, pleading for help. "No!" Ellie shrieked. "We have to save her." But Jason was already on the move. "Follow me," he shouted, breaking free from the gripping shadows. They sprinted deeper into the hall, each step fueled by urgency and fear. "Stay together," Ellie's voice rang out, but the path ahead twisted, splitting into multiple corridors, each one shrouded in darkness. Which way led to Mia? Were they running toward salvation or deeper into the nightmare? Suddenly, a door crashed shut behind them, sealing them off from the light. Somewhere, a timer started ticking, each echo counting down the seconds to an unknown doom. Ellie looked to Jason, determination sparking in her eyes. We don't have much time. We have to choose a direction. Now. But the weight of the decision crushed her. Somewhere hidden in the shadows, the real game was just beginning. What awaited them at the end of their choice, hope or despair? Which way? She stammered, fear creeping back into her throat. And as Jason pointed into the darkness, Ellie felt the icy grip of destiny wrap around her, suffocating and exhilarating all at once. She was about to confront the truth. Whatever the cost, would they find Mia? Or would they become the next victims of the game? The moment Jason pointed, a cold chill ran down Ellie's spine. The corridor stretched ahead, dark and uninviting. Shadows flickered along the walls, whispers danced around them, and yet an irresistible pull urged her forward. Let us go, she said, though doubt tightened her throat. They had to choose, but the ticking of the timer echoed ominously in her head, the seconds slipping away like sand through fingers. With a final glance back, they plunged into the darkness. The air thickened as they moved deeper, each step echoing the pounding of her heart. The laughter that had once surrounded them now faded, replaced by the rhythmic tick of the countdown. It felt as if the very walls were closing in. Ellie, Jason whispered, his voice barely piercing the weight of the silence. We can stop. We don't have to know. She interrupted, fear hardening her resolve. Mia needs us. We can't back down now. With every turn, the corridor warped and morphed, twisting into grotesque shapes. The darkness seemed alive, trying to ensnare them, but Ellie focused on the flickering image of Mia as terrified face burned into her mind. Then the path opened slightly, widening into a small chamber. Dim light sparked in the corners, jutting from crude, flickering bulbs overhead. Jason looked around, his eyes scanning every surface for movement. Stay alert, he cautioned, sensing the tension crackling between them. Ellie nodded, but the sight of more screens startled her. This time it showed fragments of their shared memories, carefree days, laughter, warmth. But the images quickly morphed into darker moments. Shadowy figures, desperate cries, and images of themselves in peril. Why are they doing this? She gasped, her hands trembling as she stepped closer to one of the screens. Jason pulled her back. Don't let it deceive you. It's all part of the game. Frustration ignited in her chest as her eyes darted across the chamber. The path ahead curved out of sight, but behind them loomed another door, thick, heavy, unyielding. It's a trap, she said, panic rising that a sudden jolt of realization struck. What if they're trying to divide us? This place feeds on fear. No more distractions. Jason's voice was urgent, slicing through her thoughts. We decide together. As if in response, the door thudded against the stone behind them, shuddering with force. A shadow slipped beneath it, creeping forward like a predator closing in on its prey. Run! Ellie shouted, grabbing his arm. They dashed toward the corridor ahead, not daring to look back. A horrifying wail echoed from behind them, drowning out the ticks of the timer. They're coming! Jason cried. They bolted into the unknown, the darkness swallowing them once more. Heart racing. Ellie's mind raced with panic and anger. Fragments of every horrible moment surged forward, their fears renewed with each step deeper into the chaos. Ellie! Jason's voice pierced through the cacophony. Do you hear that? Faint cries echoed in the distance. The trembling notes of terror mingled with the clamor of laughter, the sound gut-wrenching and eerie. Mia? Ellie called out, each shout feeling less hopeful. What if they were too late? What if they were walking straight into a trap? A flicker of light broke through the murky blackness. This way! Jason pointed, leading the charge toward the glimmer of hope, or was it another illusion? As they neared, the light pulsed, revealing an open space filled with blocks of vibrant color flickering against grim shapes. With every step, Ellie felt a strange pull, almost magnetic, drawing them closer. But the moment they crossed the threshold, the ground beneath them lurched violently once more, a rumbling that tore through the chamber. Jason stumbled, and Ellie caught him just as a wall of shadow crashed down behind them, sealing off their escape. Are we trapped? He panted, his eyes wide with fear. We have to keep moving. Ellie shouted, her instincts kicking in. And then the truth struck her, a hard slap of realization. Jason, what if they want us to divide? What if one of us has to stay behind? A deafening roar erupted around them, drowning out her words. As the shadows began to twist and shimmer, she locked eyes with him, uncertainty hanging heavily in the air. What are we going to do? In that heartbeat they faced a choice more dangerous than any corridor before. But just as Jason seemed ready to act, the lights flickered one last time, illuminating a colossal figure emerging in the dark. Fear morphed into absolute dread. Their breaths caught in their throats. What horrific nightmare had they awakened? And as the shadows loomed closer, Ellie realized they were not alone anymore. The towering figure emerged, blocking the last remnants of light with a mass of swirling darkness. Its silhouette was monstrous, a mixture of elongated limbs and jagged edges, as if it was a creature born from their deepest fears. Ellie's heart thrummed in her chest, each beat a reminder that time was slipping away. Jason, she whispered, barely able to breathe. The words fell from her lips like broken glass. I see it, he murmured, his grip tightening on her arm. Panic coursed through her veins, but the thought of Mia gave her strength. This wasn't just about survival. They had to save their friend. What do we do? Jason's voice trembled, the terror evident even in his usually steady tone. Keep moving, Ellie commanded, her voice firm despite the turmoil in her heart. There's gotta be a way out of here. They edged around the hulking figure, which seemed to breathe in the darkness, radiating a sense of dread that made Ellie's skin crawl. It swayed slightly, eyes glowing red in the impenetrable shadows. As they sidled past, the grotesque being raised an appendage, as if testing the air. Just ignore it, Jason hissed, his grip still tight on her arm. Ellie's mind raced, calculations swirling through her brain as they hurried cautiously along the curved path. The air felt electric, crackling with the smell of metal and sweat. She caught glimpses of more screens lining the walls, replaying torturous snippets from their memories, moments of joy twisted into nightmares, each image a gut punch. Suddenly a screech filled the space, a sound that made Ellie's stomach drop. This time it wasn't the monster. It was Mia. Mia! Ellie screamed, the sound tearing from her throat unbidden. Ellie, wait! Jason called, but she was already sprinting towards the sound. The corridor suddenly brightened, the shadows recoiling as if stung. Ellie plunged forward, her heart pounding like a drum. She raced through the light, Jason close behind. Then they stumbled into a new chamber. It was vast and vacant, the walls shimmering like a heat wave. In the center stood a pedestal resembling a twisted tree, and atop it lay Mia, unconscious. Mia! Jason shouted, rushing towards her. Ellie hesitated, a primal instinct gnawing at her. Wait! It's too easy. But the magnetic pull was undeniable. The shadows shifted around them, pulsing with a life of their own as if warning her of the danger that lurked beneath the surface. Mia! Jason was already at the pedestal, shaking her gently. Ellie's gaze darted around the room. The walls seemed to close in on them, the heat intensifying like an angry furnace. Jason, we don't have time. We need to get her suddenly. The enormous figure they had fought past burst into the chamber, its eyes blazing with fury. A horrifying growl rattled through the air, vibrating through Ellie's bones. Get back! She shouted, pushing Jason away, instinctively placing herself between Jason and the monster. I'll distract it. Are you crazy? Jason grabbed her arm, desperation in his eyes. Just go. Get Mia! She yelled, adrenaline surging through her. Before she could think twice, Ellie turned, raising her arms defiantly. Hey! You want me? Come get me. The monster fixed its gaze on her, its focus shifting as it surged forward with unnatural speed. The very ground trembled, and Ellie felt an overwhelming sense of dread envelop them both. Ellie, no! Jason screamed. But it was too late. The creature advanced, darkness spilling from its form like a torrent. With every ounce of strength, Ellie stood her ground. She was ready to face it head-on, ready to fight if it meant saving Mia. Fear and anger coursed through her veins like fire. The time was now. Just as the beast lunged, the ground shifted beneath her feet again, throwing Ellie off balance. She stumbled sideways, mind racing, heart hammering. And then, like a bolt of thunder, the lights flickered, and the shadows lunged, taking an unexpected twist. Jason! She screamed as darkness engulfed her, pulling her down into a chaotic whirlpool. Would the shadows trap her? Or was this a chance to turn the tide? Jason's desperate call hung in the air, a chilling reminder of what was at stake. And as Ellie fell, hope clashed violently with despair. Would she be lost forever in the abyss? Or was there still a way out? The very nature of the shadows felt like it was playing a deadly game. Their next move unknown. Could they withstand the darkness? Or would fear ultimately tear them apart? Ellie plunged into an endless void, the world above her dissolving into a whisper of light. Panic gripped her heart as she tumbled downwards, unable to discern which way was up or down. The shadows clawed at her, a cacophony of chilling whispers echoing in her ears, drowning out everything else. The sensation was suffocating. Ellie gasped for breath, every intake tainted with an icy chill. Was this it? Would she be lost forever, swallowed by the darkness? Moments stretched into eternity before she felt the ground suddenly shift beneath her. With a heavy thud she landed, the impact rattling her bones. She lay there for a heartbeat, dazed, her senses grappling with the transition from fall to stillness. Slowly she pushed herself up, blinking away the darkness that clung to her vision. The air was thick and humid, swirling around her like a living thing. She could hear the whispers still, weaving tales of her fears and regrets. Figures from her past flitted at the edges of her vision, their faces contorted in haunting expressions. Jason! She called out, her voice cracking. An answer echoed faintly, but it was distorted, swallowed by the shadows. Ellie! Relief ignited in her chest, mingling with an undercurrent of dread. I'm here. In the dark she stumbled forward, arms stretched out to guide her through the opaque murk. She could feel the ground shift beneath her feet, as if it conspired against her every step. Suddenly, out of the haze, something loomed ahead. Faint silhouettes emerged from the darkness, their outlines twisting unnaturally. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, Ellie pressed on. Jason! At last, a figure broke free from the shadows. Jason! His face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. But before she could reach him, the monstrous figure re-emerged, its growl reverberating through the oppressive air, a haunting reminder of their proximity to danger. Ellie, watch out! Jason shouted, but it was too late. The creature lunged, its massive form quickening toward her. In an instant, instinct kicked in. Ellie ducked beneath a swinging limb, the rush of air almost knocking her off her feet. Heart racing, she sidestepped, the adrenaline making her feel alive even as terror gnawed at her edges. We need to get to Mia. She darted to Jason, who was struggling against unseen forces, shadows coiling around him like serpents. Help me! He cried. Hold on! Ellie yelled, reaching for him. The ground trembled once more, and the shadows seemed to pulse with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. They surged, pulling Jason back, their grip merciless. Ellie grabbed for his hand, their fingers brushing, but the shadows twisted violently, separating them. No! She screamed, desperation mingling with outrage. With renewed resolve, Ellie launched herself into the fray, daring to confront the monster head-on. Hey! You think you can take my friend from me? The creature paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as its attention shifted once again. This was her moment, her chance to display fierce determination, even in the face of overwhelming odds. But then, in a shocking twist that sent a wave of realization through her, the shadows flickered, revealing images, flashes of moments that Jason and she had shared. Laughter, joy, and warmth. The creature's growl seemed to waver, uncertain. Don't let the darkness break us, she shouted, her voice echoing with conviction. But the shadows, relentless and chaotic, began to shift around her. They formed a swirling tempest, and Ellie felt herself spiraling again. Ellie, don't! Jason's voice cut through, raw with panic. Then everything went black. Was this the end? Or the beginning of a new struggle? The ground beneath her feet was gone, replaced by uncertainty. As the silence loomed, a chilling thought crept in. If the shadows could reveal their past, what else were they capable of showing? With one last breath, Ellie steeled herself for what lay ahead. Would they bravely face another trial together? Or would the shadows threaten to divide them once more? Hope clashed against desperation as the darkness swallowed her. Whole once again. She had to find a way out. But at what cost? Ellie gasped as the shadows receded, replaced by a muted light that seeped into the edges of her consciousness. She found herself lying on soft, damp grass, surrounded by towering trees that whispered secrets in a language she didn't understand. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. Where am I? The air smelled earthy and heavy, but the lingering clamor of darkness still echoed in her mind. She pushed herself up, scanning her surroundings. No sign of Jason. Panic surged again, threatening to pull her under. "Jason!" she called, her voice trembling. A sound rustled nearby, a whisper softer than the wind. "Ellie, Jason!" Her heart soared and sank in the same moment. She jolted to her feet, her limbs shaky but determined. The shadowy figures felt like a nightmare fading. Yet something screamed in her mind that she wasn't free yet. She turned toward the direction of the voice, moving cautiously through the woods. Each step was heavy, every crack of a twig setting her nerves aflame. The shadows could still be lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness. Elliot was there again, a taunting echo dancing through the trees. She followed the voice, her breath quickening with each step. Suddenly the ground beneath her shifted, and she stumbled. But she caught herself, half expecting the earth to swallow her whole once more. Glancing down, she saw that colorful flowers peeked through the soil, vibrant against the gloom. They were an odd contrast to the fear gnawing at her, an almost deceptive promise of safety. "Ellie!" This time it was closer. A flicker of hope surged in her chest. With renewed energy she raced forward, branches whipping against her arms, their rough edges biting through the fabric of her shirt. "I'm coming!" she shouted, urgency clawing at her throat. And then she saw him, a figure slumped against an ancient tree, disheveled and pale. "Jason!" His eyes fluttered open as if awakening from a deep sleep, confusion mingling with relief. "Ellie, you found me." His voice was weak, almost a whisper. She reached him, dropping to her knees, her fingers brushing against his cheek. "What happened? Are you all right?" "Barely," he murmured, pain laced in his words. "The shadows, their grip, it feels like they've taken a piece of my soul." Ellie felt her heart twist painfully. Shadows were creeping into the corners of her mind, too, threatening to ensnare her in their dark embrace. "We need to get out of here." As they both tried to rise, darkness coiled around them again, creeping from the edges of the forest, thickening the air and intoxicating her senses with dread. "Move," she urged, pulling at Jason's arm, forcing herself not to look back. But the shadows were relentless, their forms shifting, writhing with malice. As they retreated, she felt a sharp pang, a block of ice in her gut, like the shadows were feeding off their fear. Suddenly a shrill scream pierced through the trees. It wasn't just any scream, it was Mia's. "Not Mia, please, no," Jason gasped, his voice cracking, drenched in panic. Ellie's heart thundered, propelling her forward. "We can't leave her. We have to save her." But the shadows surged, a wave of darkness more powerful than before, pushing Ellie and Jason back. "Get away!" they cried in unison, their voices drowned in the cacophony of distorted laughter resounding through the forest. The darkness enveloped them, blurring their forms as the shadows started to merge, reshaping into something larger and more menacing. "Ellie, hold on!" Jason shouted, fighting against the pull, but his voice already felt distant. "What if we can't break free?" Ellie's question hung in the air, each word heavy with dread. But she knew deep down that giving in was not an option. Their lives, and perhaps the lives of others, depended on breaking this curse of shadows. As the creature loomed, dark and powerful, Ellie felt determination crystallize. They had to confront what lay within, together or not at all. With the whispers swirling like a storm around them, she took Jason's hand. "Whatever happens, we can face this as long as we're together." In the stillness between heartbeats, she felt the shadows shift again, and a chilling realization gripped her. To confront the creature, they might have to unveil the deepest fears they had hidden even from themselves. And at that moment the darkness broke away, revealing a stark and breathtaking glimpse of their past. What could the shadows possibly show them next? Ellie and Jason stood on the precipice of truth, their breaths shallow, hearts racing. The distortions of their past hung in the air, vibrating with the weight of unspoken fears, regrets etched deeply into their souls. A shimmer of light radiated from behind them, illuminating the twisted shadows lurking like demons, ready to drag them back into the dark. "Ellie," Jason breathed, "if we're going to do this, we have to face it together." His voice trembled, but it held an unyielding resolve, a promise that they would not falter. Together, she echoed, squeezing his hand tightly as if anchoring herself against the tidal wave of uncertainty. The shadows shifted, drawing closer, undulating like liquid darkness, whispering threats that intertwined with memories, shared laughter, fractured moments, the painful silence of past choices. Remember when we used to explore the woods behind Mom's house? Jason's voice cut through the chaos, a desperate attempt to ground them. That was a lifetime ago, Ellie murmured, her heart clenching at the memory of carefree days. What if we can't overcome this? What if we fail? We want They want us to doubt. Those memories, they're trying to twist what's true. But we've grown beyond them. Jason took a step forward and Ellie followed. Suddenly the shadows coalesced, turning into the monstrous figure from before, its shape more grotesque than ever, filled with the essence of their fears: loss, regret, abandonment. Do you think you can run from me? It hissed, its voice a combination of every shadowy whisper they had both ever heard. You are nothing without the pain that binds you. No, Ellie shouted, fire igniting in her chest. We are not defined by our pain. We will not be bound by it. With those words, the air crackled. Each syllable sliced through the encroaching dark, igniting a pulse of light within her. The vibrant colors of the flowers from earlier returned, swirling around them, each petal radiating life and remembrance. In an instant, Jason stepped between Ellie and the darkness, barriers dropping away as his confidence surged. She's right. You can't hold us. The monster recoiled, its form flickering, the shadows catching fire with their resolve. Destroying me means destroying yourselves. It howled, but the conviction in their voices rang louder. At that very moment, brilliant beams of light erupted from their hands, illuminating the chamber, fractures breaking through the darkness, revealing the true essence of what they were meant to be: not victims of chaos, but agents of their own freedom. Ellie could feel the warmth emanating from her heart, pulsing with every memory of love and laughter. We are more than this, Jason yelled, and with a determined roar, they thrust their hands forward, unleashing a whirlwind of light that swallowed the darkness whole. As the dark figure writhed, the shadows evaporated into dust, a final cry echoing as the remnants of fear dissolved around them. The light surged, flooding every corner of the hall, casting away the twisted memories that had shadowed their journey. And just like that, silence fell. Did we do it? Ellie whispered, their hands still locked together. A safety net in the aftermath. Think so. Jason surveyed the now illuminated space, recognizing familiar sights. This place is changing. Sure enough, around them the chamber began morphing, walls fading into ethereal forests lined with colors brighter than any daydream. The floor transformed from the gravel of despair to soft grass, a gentle breeze caressing their skin. Where's Mia? Ellie said urgently, snapping back into the reality of the moment. I don't know, Jason replied, concern pooling in his eyes. We need to find her. She might still be, but before he could finish, a flicker caught their attention. A sliver of light broke open a path just a few yards ahead, dancing like a beacon. Let us go, Ellie urged, narrowing her focus on the warmth radiating from that glow. They ran hand in hand, navigating the burgeoning woods, every step lighter than the last as hope steadied them. As they approached, the light expanded, revealing a clearing where Mia was kneeling, her face illuminated with joy. You made it, she gasped, her voice breaking with relief. Mia! Ellie rushed forward, enveloping her in an embrace. We were so worried. Jason joined, wrapping his arms around both girls, feeling the safety of friendship settle around them like a warm blanket. We faced the darkness and we found our way back. The three friends stood together, hearts racing, gratitude flowing in waves. They had battled the shadows of their past, confronting fears stronger than any dark force, and emerged victorious. What now? Mia asked, a spark of curiosity in her eyes, the uncertainty of their future lingering but muted by their strength and unity. Ellie looked around at the shimmering landscape, each detail vibrant and alive. Now, we move forward. Together. No more past holding us back. As they linked arms, smiles brightening their faces, Ellie felt her chest swell. She no longer bore the weight of fear but the light of newfound purpose. And as they stepped into the unknown, stepping farther from the haze of darkness, the sun broke through the treetops, casting its golden rays upon their path. This was just the beginning of their journey, not just to heal but to thrive in whatever adventures lay ahead, together. Don't wait any longer to support us. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you won't miss the next exclusive stories designed just for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and share the love. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions about this incredible ending. We want to hear your theories and ideas. And don't wait even one more second. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Let us grow our community together.